Alrighty, everybody. Welcome.
Howdy, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. My name is Crinetix,
And I'm Stoic, and this is the Community Chat Show, Episode 3.
your one-stop shop for all the latest in the CCS community.
With us today is Offlane player for Can't Connect Stuns, or CCS2, Themayneski. Before we get too far into introducing Themayneski and hearing more from him, we want to recap our special announcement from last week. If you look over here on the side of the screen, the CCS presents during development days next week the master class. We're going to be having Goon and Unaverted from Wildheart, and they're going to be talking about some inner workings of the team there, creating team culture as well as team communication. So make sure to show up to development days. More info on that on the Discord. It's going to be a good time. But now to the main event, the main course, if you will. We have with us the Themayneski. Themayneski, how are you doing today?
Hello. I didn't hear that question. Say again. How what?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Things are good. Excited for
doing pretty
tomorrow.
good over here.
All right, Macy, let's just start with like nice and easy before we get too difficult tonight. Just tell us about yourself.
What to say? I'm a math teacher for middle school. I've been teaching at the same school for almost 20 years, if you could believe that. Right here in the Peninsula, Bay Area, California. Always been a gamer. I've been playing video games since Atari 2600 when I was like 10 years old. 10. I got like Pitfall for Atari, stayed up all night playing it, and I was hooked.
Okay, Atari 2600. I didn't even know Ataris had names.
I only remember one Atari, but I guess it was called the 2600. I
Okay.
could be wrong.
No. I just looked it up. 1982. Excellent.
82. Wow. Okay. I would have been 7 or 8.
Well, thanks for the aging yourself there. Like, same school for so long. What's that like? Like, I think you've been teaching at the same school for longer than some players in the server have been alive.
Yes.
What's that like?
Yeah. I love it. It's a great community. Everybody knows me. I know everybody. Some of the families that have gone through there have had 3, 4 kids. I've taught them all. So, there's been families that I've known and been around for 12 years, and they finally graduate, go to high school. That's always sad, but it's a great community. Good teachers, good people.
Excellent.
Nice.
I
So
like this community here in CCS.
very true, very true. So what kind of games? You said you played the Atari 2600, was it? 26 something?
That's right.
What kind of games did you like to play back when you were a kid? Like, do you remember your first game?
Well, I think Pac-Man was like the first game. I mean, Pong was probably like the first video game, I guess, but Pac-Man was super popular. I played it in the arcades on Atari. It was super low graphics, but I remember I was so happy when I flipped the score. Back in the day, the score only got so large before it couldn't hold anymore. So flipping the score would bring it back to 0. That was a big day for the Themayneski. Although I wasn't the Themayneski back then.
Let's jump to that. Where does the Themayneski come from?
So, gosh, I don't know how long ago this was, but on ESPN there was a sportscaster named Kenny Mayne, and they were doing like fake commercials pretending to do sports from other countries, and so they did one from like Poland, and he became Kenny Mainski. And so when I got a dog in college, I named him Kenny Mainski, and then he is no longer with me, so now I just remember him with my handle, my video game handle.
No, that's a sweet story.
Shout out to all the puppers and pets. Okay, so
Yeah.
all right. Now let's rewind a little bit here. So you rolled the score over. Was like that drive to hit that limit or push the barrier? Has that always been with you in gaming, or did rolling the score unlock something in you?
I mean, I was pretty young at the time, so I'd have to say I've always had this competitiveness. So whenever I get into a game, if I like a game, I'm going to play to win. I'm going to learn more about it. I'm going to, you know, do as much as I can. There's like two types of games that I like. I like games, thinking games, like card games. You know, I grew up playing hearts and spades and pinochle with my family. And then there's action games, like something you got to think. You don't have time to think. You just got to make it happen. So that would be like physically, like basketball. Love playing basketball. Heroes of the Storm, obviously, right now is what's doing it for me. And then my thinking games are like Hearthstone or poker or something like that, or Magic in the day.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's quite a range of different skill sets, like thinking basketball to Magic the Gathering to Heroes of the Storm. It's a very wide range. So this seems like you've been a competitor, so to speak, for pretty much your whole life, right? Has there been a game, like you're currently playing Heroes of the Storm in a grassroots competitive league? Has there been another game that you've played in like some kind of tournament bracket or some kind of like format of competitive leagueness? Not sure how to word that question.
Yeah. So in college, back in the 90s, I got into Magic. And it was such an incredible game, Magic the Gathering. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. I think someone put a graphic up in CCS the other day showing like how good you are and how much of an a-hole you are. But I got into it pretty hard. There was a guy in my local shop, Scott Johns, who was like a pro, and he kind of came in talking about the ins and outs of drafting. I was a pretty good drafter and I was winning drafts from time to time, but what he told me kind of unlocked something. And I was able to qualify for a couple pro tours and travel. And then I was also into poker quite a bit. So I would go to Vegas for, a month at a time and play poker, play online poker. So those would be the two main games I've been competitive with, I guess.
What was the secret? Like, because you went on to compete in 2005, you went to Japan to compete in the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. What was like that piece of advice that Scott Johns gave you that like unlocked, Themayneski's next level?
Right. So my specialty for Magic was limited. So like booster draft or sealed deck. And I just remember, when I was getting into the game and pretty good, I would draft good cards, and good cards would mostly do pretty well and get me to the, top 2, top 3. And then he came in, he talked to me about, he had a deck list in mind when he was drafting. So there were different ways he could go. There were cards he was looking for. Essentially, when he was drafting, he was just filling in cards for a draft. And you're not necessarily taking good cards in that sense. You're just taking the piece that you need and trying to determine, this piece, can I get it now? Can I get it later? Kind of like you guys doing the draft the other day for Heroes of the Storm. There's maybe a player you want, but you don't need to take him first round because you figure he's going to be around in the third round or fourth round or whatever. It's same thing with Magic. It's not about taking the best card. It's about taking the card that fits the plan.
That's a fascinating concept, like drawing the parallels between HOTS and Magic there. Also, just real quick, just want to give a shout out to Goon in the chat, rating with a gigantic party. How's it going, everybody? Enjoy your stay. So how do you feel like? Do you feel like your experiencing competitive Magic has had much of an influence on your experience in HOTS? It kind of sounds like they're pretty similar.
I mean, I think any sort of competitive environment is going to teach you lessons that are going to take you farther in another competitive environment. So for Magic, I would make a ton of mistakes. I'd be at the local card shop and playing people with a deck that I was trying out and just playing horribly. And people would look at me like, how is this guy playing? how's this guy winning tournaments? He's awful, and it was just like, I learned by making mistakes. There are some people who just are good. I feel like that's not me. I mess up, and when I mess up, I learn from it and get better. And I think that lesson lends itself well to Heroes of the Storm and any game really.
So you played Magic, in college, and then after college, it sounds like 2005 you'd have been done with college by this time. Like, did poker come after Magic, during Magic? Like, I'm trying to follow your competitive history. Like, you're going from turning the score over in the arcade to then you're like in college, you fall in love with Magic. Where does poker fall into all this?
It was kind of at the same time. A lot of people who were good at Magic were pretty good at poker because there's similar aspects of it in terms of figuring out the odds and kind of expectations of what you're looking to get. And so those two things kind of work together. And so the same year I went to Japan, I also went to Vegas. And I don't know if I want to get into this now, but in Japan, I was able to play the reigning world champ at the time, who was a teenager. I was older than he was, but he had won the, I don't know, top player in the world the year before, and I managed to beat him in a match, so I was pretty happy about that. And that same year, I was playing a tournament in Vegas for poker, and I got to play against Chris Moneymaker. I don't know if there's any poker players out there who know who that is, but he was kind of the catalyst to get everybody watching the World Series of Poker. He was kind of the amateur who won it all, kind of against the professionals. And I was able to beat him in a poker tournament, small, tiny tournament, nothing serious.
Still, though.
Down at downtown Vegas in the plaza. So I was like, I'm like, yes, I beat Julian Nuchin. I beat Chris Moneymaker. So I was pretty stoked.
So you're not just like a competitor in multiple aspects. You're like a champion in multiple aspects. Like, you're taking down top names in all these different games.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but there's a lot of luck, short run luck in poker. So you can beat anybody on any given day.
Makes sense.
So, like, I've played some Texas Hold'em, like, not a lot, and usually with chips, right? I don't have the money. How like, what was it like keeping your skill set up with two, expensive games during this time? What were you a teacher at this time? How did you afford, Magic, an expensive hobby, traveling there, going to Vegas, playing poker? How did you do it?
I don't buy a lot of stuff. I'm not buying expensive cars and expensive clothes. I pretty much live on the cheap and, play the games I like to play and enjoy myself. I don't really spend a lot of cash. So I guess, back in the college days and shortly thereafter, I was living, on spaghetti and, and stuff like that. So not so bad now.
And were you walking home with money from these, like, the poker? I'm sure you walked away with money. The Magic, like, did you make some money from this? Like, was that a sustainable revenue stream for the Themayneski, or just like still just a hobby?
That was a hobby. That wasn't really a revenue stream. I imagine I spent a lot more money than I ever made in Magic. For poker, I don't keep good records, but I'd like to think it's the opposite. So okay. I don't like losing, and it's not just the money. So if I'm not doing well in poker, I wouldn't be playing it. So I was doing okay. I wasn't, getting rich off it. I had a buddy who was a big Magic player. He lived down in LA, and I saw him at a Magic tournament, and he said, "Hey, I'm moving to Vegas. I'm going to try to be a professional poker player." I'm like, "Oh, awesome, dude. Good luck." And in my mind, I wanted to be positive for him, but in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, that's a hard life. Like, it's going to be tough." And then a year later, I see him on ESPN winning $2 million. I'm like, all right, you go, dude.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
We have a ton of questions from the chat here. So let's just pop off one of these now. So as the original CCS2 had a few bumps and bruises in their first season, What tips could you give to teams and captains that are just starting out? This comes from Valcomer.
Yeah, I think, well, someone told me this, and I can't remember who it was. I think I did not expect to be a captain coming into CCS or NGS. In fact, I didn't know anything about the scene. I just was like, I think it was around COVID coming out, and I was at home a lot, and I was like, I really love playing Heroes of the Storm. I was pretty bummed out that I think what was called HGC kind of ruined the whole competitive scene, and I was like, gosh, I wish there was something out there. And I think I did a search and found some sort of free agent thing, NGS. I was like, all right, let's see what it's about. So I was kind of thrown into it. And then Valk asked me to be captain, and I was like, oh, okay. I imagine it was just like scheduling matches or something. But I mean, there's a lot of personalities to deal with, right? So some people don't like being told what to do. So, we're in a situation in this game that's like things have to happen fast. I think of it kind of as the military. I was never in the military, but you give an order and it has to be followed quick because time is of the essence. And some people don't like to be told what to do, and so there's some issues there. Also, it's tough to get everyone on the same page. Often, some teams are thrown together with people who don't know each other. And I think you were talking to Michael last week, and he was talking about how important it is that all 5 people are on the same page. Like, are we fooling around? Are we serious? And I think it's going to take a few rotations out of your initial lineup before you get people who are like, yeah, this is what we want. We're all kind of looking for the same thing. And someone told me that after a while, because I was taking it pretty hard because I invited a couple friends. There was people that were new that I never met before. And so we were getting our asses beat in Div C. And so people were getting frustrated. I was getting frustrated. People were leaving. I was having to find new people, and I was getting bummed out. And someone's like, no, it's fine. That's normal for any new team. People are going to go until you get a group that's on the same page. And that's what we have now. I feel like I'm talking too much.
No,
it's good. Yeah.
You just dropped this entire story, and there's so many things that I want to dive into here. Cause like, you just kind of like told the whole story that we've been wanting to uncover here. So like, you started by saying like, you were like, COVID hit, you had this extra time, and you were loving HOTS. I'd love to hear about that story of like, how did you like run us through like, you beat this world champ in poker, you beat this world champ in Magic, like fast forward 10 years, like how did you get introduced to Heroes of the Storm?
So I played Magic for a long time. And to be good and to stay on top, it takes a lot of effort because they're constantly rotating sets and there's so many interactions in the game that you really got to play a lot to have it down. And so I was looking for something that, would give me that competitive feel, but not take as much time because, I got to teach, I got a full-time job, and Magic just took a long time. So I found Hearthstone. When it came out, people were like, oh, there's this cool game, Hearthstone. And I had grown up, I don't know when they came out, but I played Warcraft, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3. I never played World of Warcraft because that's just not my style of game. But so I liked Blizzard games. So I tried out Hearthstone. I liked it. And so I kind of went away from Magic. Hearthstone was cheaper, easier, more fun. Not as serious. And so that was all good, but there was still that itch of fast pace, make a decision right now. And so I tried out Heroes of the Storm. I'd never played a MOBA before. So when I came in Bronze 5, I was probably, the worst Bronze 5 you've ever seen. I didn't do anything. I didn't stutter step. I remember playing Johanna for the first time, or not even the first time. I remember playing her a few times, and every time I played against her, I'm like, man, she is so tanky. And then every time I played her, I would just get blown up so fast until I figured out there's this D button that gives you. So that's what I was up to.
So you said that you started out in Bronze 5. How did you, like, what kind of resources were kind of instrumental in kind of helping you bridge that gap from not knowing how to trade as Johanna to playing competitively?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I played really casually for a long time. And at some point, every time I wanted to get better, I would watch some videos. I remember Chew8 was one of my favorite streamers. I used to watch HGC. I like to follow Glaurung's team, which had a couple different names from beginning to end. But what did he end up as? Roll 20. What was it in the last HGC? I can't remember.
I want to say he was playing for Tempo Storm with Fan and Cattle.
Yes, that's right. So he ended up in Tempo Storm. So I was like a total fanboy. Whenever they had a match, I would watch on HGC. And so when HGC ended, I was pretty bummed because a lot of the streamers, were leaving. But I started watching Fan, who's I think kept streaming the whole time. He's pretty fun. He's pretty amazing. I try to play like him, and it doesn't usually work.
So how did you? So you started playing casually, how much HGC did you watch? Did you were you a follower, or was it I want to climb? Let me go watch some HGC to get some tips or some inspiration.
I don't know. I can't remember how I went about starting to climb. I know I used to look at websites for builds and I tried to figure out drafting strategies and whatnot, but it was really slow going. Like I didn't have someone there that had been a player for a long time who could kind of walk me through it. It was pretty slow going. I haven't looked back at my history, but I imagine it took quite a long time. Eventually I made my way to where I was living in Platte for a couple of years. And then when I started in NGS, it changed my mind frame, and I couldn't switch between Storm League and NGS, and I ended up like going back to Gold because the game just wasn't the same. It's like a whole different game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't really know how I learned how to climb. It was a really slow process because I wasn't really taking it super seriously like I had some other games like Magic or poker.
Did you play on any teams before the first CCS2, or was that your first?
No, that was it. That was it. Captain of my first team. That's why we got crushed so bad. I'm like a newbie. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know like who to ask for help or.
So walk us through the cat. Like you had this catalyst. You want to get better. You said you signed up for the NGS Season 9 free agent night. Like how did it go from like I want to get better and join this coordinated team to now I'm the captain with this was when T'Pol and I mean I can't remember her real life name. I'm Wind Up Bird, right, and Rally. Yeah. So like how did that whole crew come together? Shout out to all those CCS2 people from the past.
Yeah, I mean, we had some good players to start out. And I think, how did it happen? Gosh, I don't think I put them together. Maybe Val can chime in here. Did he kind of round up enough people and just ask me to be the captain and we just went for it? Maybe he knows, but I can't really remember. We had some really good players. We just had a lot of communication issues. Yeah, I still play with Bird all the time. I always see her in ARAMs, and so that shows she doesn't beat me too bad. I invite her, or she invites me.
Yeah, that's always nice. So it's just the original CCS2 disbands, and then how is that like from your perspective? Like, Because I mean, obviously you're still here playing, right? So something kept you around despite the team
Well,
breakup.
we didn't actually disband. So some players left. There was some heated chats, heated arguments, and some people left. And so I was kind of pulling people in. And I don't remember the exact order. I know Wolf got in there relatively early. Murad got in there. I think I was looking at free agent stuff, and I got a hold of Wolf, got a hold of Murad. I think Slick was later, and then Brainer came on last, but that might not be correct. But once we started getting the current crew in there, it just kind of worked. We just were shouting in comms, but that was the key for me. Like I want people communicating direction. That was something that was lacking in the kind of the initial group, and that was starting to work. And we won a game or even a couple matches, and so that was feeling much better towards the end of that season. So we never disbanded. We just kind of switched out people.
I see. That kind of transitions perfectly into another chat question from Alden Zero. They say, question for Mainsky. Can you say one brief thing that you like about each of your CCS2 teammates? Wolf, Slick, Murad, Brainer.
Oh, man. I mean,
Kind of putting you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're all like just having a good time for the most part. I mean, we get frustrated when we lose and, we make mistakes and that's standard team stuff. But I mean, we all love joking around. Brainer likes to piss us off by switching around the people. And, but let's see, something about each person. I mean, Slick's just a beast on healer. We always joke with him drinking too much. I don't actually know if that's the case, but Wolf's always saying he's got his head in a bowl of vodka. Slick, chime in if that's actually true. I think he's making that up. I mean, Murad, he just drops damage. I mean, if you're going to CC somebody, he's going to follow up on that damage. Wolf, I think we were undefeated when he's on Greymane, so he's just a beast on that direct, on that auto attack damage. Brainer, he's got more confidence than the whole team put together. He's got more confidence than the whole CCS organization put together. But when he's on. He's got great micro. We just got to tell him where to stand sometimes.
You've kind of gone through and kind of give us the hint of all of these players, like what their roles are. You play the Offlane. When did that materialize that you were going to be this top lane player?
I'm not really sure. I think now that I'm thinking about it, when I was ranking up in Storm League, I would get frustrated because since I was watching like people better than me play and talking about it, I felt like I knew some stuff that wasn't happening in Storm League that I wanted to happen. Like people weren't getting camps at the right time or not at all. And so I was like, well, what heroes are good at carrying in Storm League? Because, if you're a good DPS, but your tank isn't doing the right thing or your healer's not helping you out, you can't necessarily carry. And I figured, well, maybe macro would be a good way to carry, and I can time the camps right. And so maybe that was a way that I started to rank up a little bit. And so maybe that's what got me into the Offlane. I know I tried tank when when we were in C West getting our butts kicked. I tried to be the tank, and that didn't go well. So, hats off to Brainer for, if the tank is doing the wrong thing, it's really hard to win. And I know that because I was doing the wrong thing a lot.
Iron skin on Johanna.
Yeah. I know how to do that now.
So did you play Offlane in the original CCS2, or is this something that's?
Well, I was doing all sorts of stuff. I think I was doing Offlane in the beginning, and then like a couple times I might have switched to tank as people were leaving and coming in. So it wasn't as specific for the roles, kind of when we were getting it all figured out. But I think I mostly played Offlane.
Okay. So you've kind of taken us through your journey through CCS2 in the old and the new. But something that I don't know if we brought up is that you, outside of the CCS1 roster, you're the longest standing competitive member in the CCS organization. So like, what has that kind of looked like from your perspective, seeing the community grow from like just, 1 and 2 teams into like this powerhouse that it's become?
I mean, it's pretty cool. When you guys said that last week as like the teaser for this week, I was like, wait, what? That can't be right. And then I think about it, like obviously CCS2 means we were the second team. So yeah, I mean, to see how it's blown up to CCS3 and 4 and 5, what are we on to 8 now? Like that is so awesome. It's just great to get a community of people. We get legit coaches in here helping us out. Josh is often helping us with replays and telling us what we do wrong, which I think really is the only way to get better and super helpful. And I just think the amount of knowledge, game knowledge in CCS is terrific. Great for new players, great for people that have been around forever. And it's not just game knowledge, it's just kind of social, everyone's super friendly. It's great. I don't know if I answered the question, but
yeah, you did. I think. I mean, it's definitely been an exciting blow up here from, because you guys CCS2, you started as the CCS1 punching bags, right? Like it was just like like Valk. They needed a team that they could scrim so that they could get better. Like, was that like a weird beginnings? Like just feeling like this long-standing team just like needed a scrim partner, so they like birthed you? Like, was that a weird relationship?
I mean, not really. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, I feel bad for them not getting a lot of practice when we were so horrible. Not because we had bad players, but any new team is going to go through a time of getting to know each other and kind of expectations and what this person's going to do at this time. And so I think it was kind of fun because, you're the punching bag, but then you're waiting for that time where you can get that win. It's kind of like when you're a kid and your dad's beating you at basketball every time. And that first time you win, you're like, okay, all right, here we go. So,
for sure. You mentioned before about how in the like early stages of making a team, how the team culture kind of grows and adapts until you kind of find that right fit. How do you feel like the CCS organization, like as far as the culture goes, how do you feel like that's kind of changed over the past however long? I mean, I guess it hasn't really been that long, but
it's probably coming up on a year. So for me, so it hasn't been that long. So how has the culture changed? Let me think about that. Well, I mean, I think as you grow more people, I mean, we're talking about CCS1 started with what, 8-ish people? I mean, when I got here, they had, there are 5 and then they had a few extra. And now we're up to what? How many people are even in CCS? If there's 8 teams, at least 40 people, right? Although some of those aren't fully functional right now. How many are fully functional right now?
I think 6.
Okay. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I believe 4 and 6 right now are out of commission.
I mean, I don't really see a lot of change in culture. I just know when I came in, Valk and the guys were super welcoming. I know Oss, being an offlaner, has been more than gracious and ready to help whenever I want it. He'll type to me after a game and you know, make me feel better or give me some tips or whatnot. So I think that kind of care and generosity of information has stayed. So I don't know if I would say there's a big culture shift in that way. So I don't know. Maybe it hasn't changed. Maybe that culture they kind of started is still kind of alive and living well. Certainly, there's a lot more people posting about sandwiches and and memes and whatnot.
How much time, like that's not the question I want to ask. Like, are you I went through in preparation, I went through and looked at the times that you've chatted in. Like, it seems like like you chatted in a lot back in, March, April, May. Like, things have kind of slowed down for Mainski in the Discord of the last little bit. Um, are you still like reading all the sandwich alignment charts, or just haven't had time to post your own?
I don't read all the stuff these days because school has been super crazy with all the COVID regulations. So, like back in March of last year, we started doing distance learning, and we totally lightened the schedule because um, it was new for students, and we wanted to transition them lightly and not like have this horrible, you can't see your friends, you got to wear a mask all the time, and you're going to do 8 hours of homework a night, so we chilled out everything on the schedule at the end of last year. And so that's why I had the extra time. And then of course over the summer I'm not working, so I can read all the stuff and communicate and all the stuff. And then come September, I had to learn some new technologies and kind of figure out how to teach in this new system. Um, I'm teaching a class in 2 different rooms plus a Zoom, and I got to figure out how to make that all work. Um, so yeah, it's tough to stay with it during full-time school, if that makes sense.
Totally, and it totally makes sense. I think a lot of people probably have a very similar story. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, do your students know that you're a hardcore, like, you've done Magic, you've done poker, and now you're competing on the night? You're competing every weeknight to get these dubs and hots.
Um, yeah, more or less. I mean, I tell them that I'm a gamer, and they're constantly asking me for my Discord handle and all this. I'm like, no, that's not happening. But if they happen to find me through their own volition, I guess that's fine.
Back when I was teaching, it was always like, if you passed Mr. Stoic's class, you could play Fortnite with him over the summer, but you had to pass, and then we could
That's awesome.
Fortnite as often as you wanted. You just got to get through 8th grade.
That's awesome. I mean, I would like to do more of that, but you know, things are weird. You got we had a well, I won't get into that, but you never know. Our school doesn't like us having contact with our students too much outside, which is a bummer, right? Because I mean, that's why I'm teaching. That's why I like to do. I like to create those relationships and get to know my students. But you don't want it to get weird where students like hanging out with you on Discord at night. So I get it. I understand why they don't want that to happen. Um, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
that makes sense.
That actually transitions into another one of our questions from the Twitch chat here. Again from Valkymer. How do you feel your professional background has helped you to be a better player in HOTS?
My professional background, better player. I mean, I'm constantly preaching to my students that they have to make mistakes to learn. And so, I mean, that lesson is true for anything, um, and true for HOTS as well. Um, and part of the reason why I sometimes get frustrated if I haven't had time to, and I haven't recently had time to like look at replays and watch my mistakes and learn from them, and so I end up making the same mistakes over and over and over again. That's pretty frustrating. But I would say, um, that's what I would take from my. I mean, also kind of just dealing with different personalities. I think you learn how to do that as a teacher, probably in most any professional background.
How does your professional background, impact the role, like not the offlane role, but the role that you play in the CCS2 team dynamic?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. I'll have to ask my teammates what role I play in the dynamic.
I can tell you what some of them have said. They've said, I have it written down, that you're the notes guy. Also, that they say that you're great at teaching in the pre and post game. Like, what does it mean to be that? Oh, Mainski's the notes guy. Like, I'm sure you know what that means better than I do.
Well, if I watch a replay, I'll just take notes and say, okay, at 7:30, this happened. We should have done this instead. So maybe that's what they're talking about. I also will make a spreadsheet for scouting teams that we're going to play. Maybe that's what they're talking about.
A scouting spreadsheet. Give us what does that look like? Because I imagine there's people in the chat who are like trying to level up their game, saying, "I want to be like Mainski." Like, give us a little. What's the scouting spreadsheet?
What is the okay? So I mean, it's relatively simple. It's just so each column would be a game that they've played in the past, and it'll show what heroes were banned, what the map was, who had first pick, what heroes were picked for both teams, and then what else? So after I look at all that, I'll start to identify some patterns that I'm noticing and make notes about that. So like, okay, when they'll play this player, when they play this other player, like if they get Abathur, they're going to want to pick Samuro, or, any number of combinations that I'm looking for. I'm also looking to see what maps they're going to ban, what maps they're bad at, what maps they're good at, so anything I can think of, I throw on the spreadsheet.
Do you have any wins? Like, is there a time you can think of back to maybe last season where you're like, oh, my scouting helped us to know their draft patterns so we could counter it, or anything like that?
Oh, geez. I can't really think of any.
It's fine.
Sometimes I think my time would be better spent watching a replay instead of our own team. At some point we're like, maybe we should stop worrying about what everyone else is doing, figure out what the heck we're doing.
That's definitely a valid point. So it kind of sounds like, this is, well, this definitely seems like something you take pretty seriously. Do you have aspirations for CCS2 to kind of climb up through the ranks and maybe even be playing for money someday? Is that?
I'm an old guy. They say the APM goes down as you get older, so I really don't have any aspirations of playing in CCL or anything. I do like improving and getting better, so I would like to move up to B. I know Brainer wants to be an A div already, and I think that's too fast. So I just want to do well in C, and once that happens, which I imagine it'll happen at some point, I'd like to get up to B. I'm just looking for constant improvement, really. My aspirations for playing pro, I don't think are really here for this game. This is more just for fun.
I mean, you say this game. Is there another game for Mainski on the horizon where you're looking to go pro?
You never know. You never know. I mean, who knows if I get back into Magic one day, or poker, or some other new game comes along that I really enjoy.
Interesting. You mentioned CCL. Were you HGC was very sad when that went away. CCL came, happy day. Season 1 I thought was fantastic. Were you a follower of CCL?
I didn't watch many games, actually, unfortunately. I watched a few, but I need to watch more. I think I'm playing too much and watching too little, and so that's kind of messing up my learning curve a little bit. Um, it's just so darn fun to play.
I think it's an interesting dichotomy though you bring up. Like the time you spend playing is not time spent watching, and you have to balance to find that good learning curve. Interesting.
Yeah, it's that competitive itch that I have. Like I'll watch someone play, and I'll be like, all right, I want to try that. I want to get in there and try that. All the stupid stuff fan tries to do. I'm like, oh, I got to try that.
He's definitely good at that crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you kind of mentioned this, like playing too much, not studying enough? Do you have like a sort of target in your mind of if you were playing, like ideally, how much you'd be playing versus watching replays or other forms of studying?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about it. So if I were to think about it right now, what would be ideal? I mean, if you're really trying to get better, if that's your number one goal, and the fun is like less important, I mean, maybe half and half, or maybe even less playing and more watching and learning and listening.
Interesting. So you're on the other end of that because you said you've been playing too much.
Yes, I am playing. I get sucked into ARAM, and then I realize, what am I doing? Like ARAM is nothing like the actual game.
Well, that's me. In preparation for the last week's interview, I played so many games of flippin' Zeratul. Like every time I get done with a game, I'm like, I haven't been practicing range damage. I'm so embarrassed. Like I shouldn't be playing Zeratul. I'm never gonna play Zeratul in NGS.
You were hitting some good VPs today, though.
Thank you. That was we did have some good games today. So what's your thoughts? Like, Brainer wants Div A. You're looking for maybe Div B. You've had the rubber band from C. Yeah, not yet. In the future. But you've had the rubber band from C down to D, and you did very well last season in Division D, so congratulations there. Now that you're in Div C, which is probably a better fit for where the team's at, or not probably, is a much better fit for the team's at. What are you guys looking for in this season? Like, what are the goals? Are you looking to take the Coastal Finals, the Grand Finals?
Well, I think Div B was in hindsight really bad for us.
Really?
For a learning perspective. I mean, it was, I guess, confidence building to win that much. But what I think happened is because we were winning, we weren't identifying mistakes, and we weren't watching enough of our games. Because we're winning, like, of course, we're playing great, right? Which is not the case. And so towards the end of the season, it started to show, because while we were probably a tiny bit better than we were at the start of the season, I think the rest of the people in our division were getting better. And so I think I wouldn't say we fell backwards, but sometimes I feel that way because we were winning too much. And I think you really need to hit that level where, you win some, you lose some. And it's also really important to realize when you're winning, you're making mistakes. Like, there's so many decisions in this game. I probably make a mistake a minute at least, right? Or 2 mistakes a minute. And so when you're winning, you're still making mistakes. And I think we weren't recognizing that. And so we didn't learn. So I think that was bad for us. And I think this season is going to be good for us because we're going to get our butts whooped from time to time. Hopefully we're going to win some matches as well. But I think it'll get us more on the learning mode.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to kind of find mistakes if they aren't being punished.
Yes. Yeah, because a lot of the positioning mistakes we were making over and over and over again, but they just weren't getting punished, so it doesn't feel like a mistake. But some of the teams we've been playing recently in Nexomania, we we play up on Thursdays, and oh, we're getting punished, all right. Over and over and over again.
And so how have you guys approached this Nexomania? This Nexomania has been a little different than Div D. How have you approached this new experience of losing?
It's frustrating. I'd like to say like I handle it with professionalism, and we talk about our mistakes. It's frustrating. Losing isn't very fun. But I think after I listened to your interview with the two of your interviews, it started to inspire me to get back into the learning mode again. And again, when you talked to Michaelin last week, because I was getting frustrated, and then I realized like, well, what do you want? What do I want? Well, I want to learn from my mistakes. Okay, so what am I going to do about it? Like, so I was getting frustrated, but I wasn't fixing the situation. I was just getting upset about it. So now I'm like, okay, well, stop getting upset, do it. So I started watching more replays, because that's the only thing you can do, right? Oh, and we've been getting more help from Josh. So, he'll watch us play and he'll give us immediate feedback, which is super helpful.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm very glad to hear that Stoic and I's efforts have been able to be inspirational.
No, that was a great interview. Yeah, super good.
So, Nexomania is coming up to a close. NGS is on the horizon. How's CCS2 and how are you feeling about the season? Kind of seen the list of captains and the teams you're going to be playing against. How's the morale looking?
Well, better than it was a couple weeks ago, I think. I think it's going to be like I'm not going to compare our team to Tom Brady, but I think it's going to be like Tom Brady joining the Bucs. It's going to hurt for a few weeks as we, take some beatings and learn from that. And I think, hopefully we can improve and hit our stride towards the mid end of the season and finish strong. I think that's what I'm looking to happen.
For you personally, what is that stride? Like we've been kind of focused on CCS2. But like you're the offlane, and so a lot of your experience is just you and the other person, whether it's facing off or double soaking. What does that stride feel like for you, or maybe even look like?
I mean, the stride feels like to me when we're communication. Like, I guess I haven't talked about this previously, but a lot of the games I was mentioning before are solo games. Poker, I'm playing by myself. Magic, I'm playing by myself. And playing with other people is a whole different sport. You got to trust your teammates. And so I would say that stride is the point where you can trust that your teammate's going to do what we went over in practice, that we're going to communicate well. And the thing that frustrates me most is when I make the same mistake again that I had made previously. And so I think hitting my stride is, when I realize, okay, I would have done this before, now I'm going to do it this way. And when that's happening more and more, that's the stride.
I mean, so what we've talked about previously then makes perfect sense of getting into this replay, losing. So it forces you to go back to the replays. So you're watching your replays. So you're seeing the mistakes so you can identify them, so you can fix them. I mean, that's a beautiful cycle of competitive gameplay and improvement that you're describing. Yeah. And I can't agree enough. I know that for me, when my team gets on a little bit of a winning streak, we stop watching replays. And then instantly we're like, okay, let's go scrim those Div A teams from before. And we just get cut right back down to size. That's it's like a 3-week cycle for us.
I mean, for me, I feel like there's a trust issue because, like you said, I'm on my own a lot in the solo lane, and it's weird. I've realized this, that when I get into a team fight situation and when I get low on health, I'm so not used to being around a healer, because I'm self-sustaining on my own. There are times when I back up because I'm thinking, oh, I need to go tap a well, or I need to go, go back to base. And it's not that I don't realize we have a healer. I'm just so not used to my health going up that quickly because I'm always on my own. So that's some of the trust that I need to have when I get into those team fights. Like, okay, Slick's going to take care of me. I just need to stay in there,
Slick does a good job of taking care of the team. That's for sure.
So we have a couple more questions from chat. One here from Alden Zero. So which hero, Blizzard property or not, would you love to see be introduced into Heroes of the Storm as an offlaner?
Blizzard property or not?
Captain America.
Oh boy, there was a game I played when it hit the arcades. Now it's up to Street Fighter V, but I got into Street Fighter hard. When I was 16, I was in the arcades all the time. This is before we had like PlayStation and all these. If you wanted to play real Street Fighter, you were in the arcade. So I would have to go back to a Capcom Street Fighter character. Who would it be though? My gosh, I loved them all. I played that game so much. I'm gonna have to say, E Honda. I think he'd make a good offlaner. I'd headbutt people to stun them. Then I'd do that splash on the wave to clear the wave.
He was a sumo wrestler, right?
Hand slap on the wave.
Yeah.
I'm glad you knew what that was, Kryn, because I'm not a Street Fighter guy.
Yep, sumo wrestler. Not a Street Fighter guy. Oh, it's a wonderful game.
Yeah, I unfortunately I'm given my age, I play Street Fighter V. I never played the old ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Street Fighter 2. I played Street Fighter 1. That game is so awful. Look it up on YouTube. It's really bad. But it was amazing. When it came out, it was like incredible. And then Street Fighter 2 was game changing. And when I went over to Japan to play Magic, I went to an arcade there, right? Because of course I would. And there were arcades there where the whole room was filled with Street Fighter games. Like, I'm not talking different versions. I'm talking the same version 20 times. And people were playing against each other. They had them like face to face. So like you're on one side, your opponent's on the other. And it's a pretty great feeling beating someone in a Japanese arcade at Street Fighter.
That sounds incredible.
Oh man, are there any other games like Street Fighter that that you've been playing recently? Like outside of HOTS, like do you get the same like beating someone in HOTS? I guess does that give the same feeling as beating someone across in Street Fighter, or that it did when you were playing Hearthstone? Back in 2014.
I'm still playing Hearthstone. I played it today, in fact. I think you get the same feeling. I think, it's different depending on how you win, right? The closer the game, the better the feeling, right? Unless you lose, right? So if you win a tight one, that's like super awesome, exciting. If you lose a tight one, oh, well, that hurts. But if you lose one where you got your butt kicked the whole time, you're like, well, there's not a heck of a lot I could have done here. They just whooped us up. And if you win like so easily, that's not all that fun either. It's those really competitive ones that are the best.
For sure, yeah. We have another question from chat from Wolf. what hero do you want to play in an NGS match that you haven't played yet?
Murad doesn't like me to play some heroes, so he doesn't want me to play Zagara or Nazebo or who do I? There's a lot of ranged characters that I don't get to play that I enjoy playing. Asmodan, Nazebo, Zagara. So, sometimes playing offlane gets lonely. Sometimes you wish, hey, I wish I could get in there and do some damage. And
these all sound like very siege-heavy heroes, like Zagara, Nazebo, Asmodan. Is this because like your team puts more of a weight on team fighting over split pushing, or?
So that's an interesting comment because there was you guys have probably heard of Phil Hellmuth, poker player, Daniel Negreanu, or Stu Unger was a famous one. And there's a story about Stu Unger in the World Series of Poker, and he won it all without ever putting himself all in. Meaning, when he was all in, he had more money than everybody else. And you're wondering, how does this apply? Well, I always think of that when I think about macro, because I think if you're playing the map right and you're using the camps right and using siege properly, you can play a whole game without ever having to get into a fair fight. And so that's always really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to win without going all in. If that makes sense.
I want to make like a Heroes of the Storm TikTok channel or some like short form video content, because what you just described for me is like the biggest difference between like, I don't know where the line is drawn, but somewhere of like teams that like say, oh, we can just fight. Like, let's just fight and win. Yeah. But like, really, like there's this beautiful game, and the poker analogy is so perfect because like he can call and go all in, but he's still got money in the bank. And that's that macro pressure. That's the lanes being pushed up where like, heaven forbid, if we're up 2 levels and something does go wrong, we don't just immediately get pushed on our core because we've done the other work. We've done the macro work, the homework, to make the fight very extremely advantageous for us. Oh my gosh.
I mean, if you think about like Sky Temple, there's so many situations on Sky Temple where if you avoid fighting, you are guaranteed to win. It's like the only way you can lose is if you engage in a team fight, at a certain time. And I'm not saying always. I'm saying there are specific situations where literally the only way you can lose is if you get wiped in a team fight. And I have lost so many games this way. And I'm like, we don't just don't fight. Just don't fight. Just go away. And I think if you can go through a whole game where you don't have to go all in and win, there you go.
So it sounds like you're still kind of selling your team on this concept, as they, don't want you playing these kind of split push heroes.
Yeah, maybe to an extent. And at the same time, I think that's something I need to learn. I'm totally aware of the fact that I need to learn when to get out of lane and when to get to the fight. And I think, I'm not going to say it's a math equation, but it's a timing situation, right? If I'm going to leave the lane and get into a fight, I have to figure out, well, what am I giving up in terms of XP? What are we gaining in terms of XP and map pressure? And, depending on the map, of course. And I really haven't sat down and, I think it would require some calculations to figure it out. Like if you get a kill at level 10 and you miss 2 waves of soak, that's probably not worth it. Right? Or, if you get a kill at level 2 and you miss a wave of soak, I don't think it's probably not worth it. But I haven't sat down and done all the calculations. But people have talked about it.
Interesting. How often do you think with like kind of that math brain of like, not actually crunching the numbers, but making a rough equation.
Well, I mean, I've thought about this a lot, and I haven't really written anything down about it, but time, it's all about time. And so if you could calculate, how much time it takes to rotate from a lane to another lane. So if I'm pushing a tower and they rotate 4 guys against me and they kill me, this is still potentially a win for us if we don't follow up and die after the fact by like chasing down, like, okay, let me die and go do other stuff on the map, because it just took them 4 times 25 seconds to kill me. It just took them 100 seconds to kill me. I'm going to be alive before 100 seconds. So that's a win for us. So, but I haven't really gone through and figured it all out, but I think about it a lot.
Interesting. I want to push a little bit on the Zag, Asmo, and Nazebo, because like and full transparency, like I just played 2 games of Zagara in the Heroes Lounge playoffs. So like I don't want to like push too hard, because like they have their place, but those are heroes that you didn't often see in HGC, and you never really saw in CCL either. And as being like kind of, it seems like a little bit of a student of this, like what is the highest level of play. What do you think that those heroes bring that other, more typical offlaners don't? Or is it just for funsies?
A little of both. I mean, it's fun to play range sometime when I'm playing bruisers all the time. But if you can communicate a plan to not fight even, and if your team can follow through with that plan, the global aspect of like a Zagara. Now, Zagara and Asmodan are going to be relatively different. I mean, Asmodan can kind of pretend to be global with his Q length at a certain point when he has enough stacks. He can hit that mid lane from bottom lane or whatever. But if you can push a fort with Zagara, and if they don't respond to that, you get a fort and they get the objective, and depending on what objective that is, that could be a win. And then if they respond to it and you can knight us down to a 5v4 fight, I mean, that's really good. And then a lot of people say that Zagara doesn't deal a lot of damage, but I've seen plenty of Zagaras put a lot of damage out there, so I guess it kind of depends.
Interesting.
I'm not advocating that everyone is underplaying Zagara, by the way. But on certain maps, I think it can be a good hero.
And so who is, you said, is Murad the one that tells you can't play what you want to play? Like, does Murad do the drafting? Like, what are you doing listening to this kid?
Right. No. Murad's cool. He is very opinionated, though, on talent builds and heroes, and not afraid to tell you about it, which is good. But getting back to who does our drafts, that is an excellent question, because I think that's a really that's a big hole in our game. We need a drafting coach. So any drafting coaches out there, we'd like to hear from you.
This is your formal application.
Because I like in my, when you said hitting your stride earlier, in my perfect world, when I get into a draft, I want to know exactly who we're picking and when, and if the enemy team does A, then we can branch off and do, B. And then if they go to C, we can go to D, like have it all mapped out. That's what I think it should be. And I imagine the best teams are doing that. But at this point, we're doing what I used to do when I was Magic drafting, when I was pretty good, but not really good. We're just picking good cards at the moment.
So you need that. You're looking for that Scott Johns, that person to help you figure that next piece out.
Yep.
Interesting. And this will be what takes you to the Heroes of the Storm version of Japan. I love it.
Yeah. Because I think, matches can be won on the draft. I think we've all won and lost matches just on the draft. I remember being in Storm League games where the enemy team is picking a bunch of auto attackers early, like they just pick 2 or 3 auto attackers right off the bat. And I'm like, guys, let's just pick a bunch of blind heroes and let's just roll them. And then, that doesn't happen and get whooped.
And you're overwhelmed by sustained damage.
Right.
Unfortunate.
I find all the parallels between HOTS and Magic just fascinating to think about. Just like how, the tools that you need to get in your deck, or the tools you need in your team. Obviously, card games are going to have an aspect of RNG to them that HOTS doesn't necessarily have, but
right.
And of course the team aspect of it changes it a bit as well, but still interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the RNG might be the talents, or the you're not knowing what talents the enemy team's going to take necessarily, or what heroes they're going to take. But yeah, you're right. Definitely less RNG.
Are there other parallels that we haven't, that you haven't addressed? Like, what other, if we were to start a new series just called Lessons from the Arena or whatever, what else could HOTS players learn from your Magic experience?
Well, I think the graphic about being a jerk when you're good can probably be helpful. I've played against and probably been the jerk from time to time in HOTS, trying to tell people what to do. I try to do it nicely, but sometimes the game can be super frustrating. But what other parallels? Having a plan, preparation, learning from your mistakes. We've gone all over those. I don't know. There's probably so many that I'm just drawing a blank right now, but
we'll follow up in episode 46. We'll come back to you, Mainsky. After CCS 18 has been founded and won the Division A championship.
Oh my gosh. It'll never stop.
I really hope it doesn't. One question that's now burning in my mind. You sent the call out to the world, CCS, we need a draft. CCS 2 needs a drafting coach. I'm curious, Mainsky, are you coaching any other teams in NGS? Is that something you've thought about before?
I have not. I did a development day, quote coaching session, but of all the people in CCS, I don't think I'm the qualified one to be coaching. I'm just sitting alone in my offlane hitting minions.
You've dropped some pretty powerful nuggets here that show a fundamental understanding. I think just from your I thought this before, right? I've played lots of games with you, Mainsky, and it's always a pleasure. You definitely have a lot to bring. But just from your simple analogy of explaining the all in with the poker, I definitely think there's something there. So now I'm my goal wasn't to encourage you go pick up a team and coach them, but your humility is hiding the fact that you definitely, not only are you a good teacher, but there's also some HOTS content. There's some nuggets that you have to teach that I think that replay review of another team could really benefit.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe if I could help out a Div G team or something, or no, maybe Div D or E or something. I could probably give him some tips.
Lupus in chat has really embodied what I was trying to get at. I think that what you can bring is it doesn't have to be the Hogger beats Gazlo by changing this level 7. It's the way that you're thinking here and the way that you've approached being competitive and winning in multiple games. I think could be powerful. Because a lot of these teams are full of I don't want to call them kids, but younger people who don't maybe have these experiences or this mindset. And that's definitely something that you could be providing is
Yeah.
that level of teaching, of understanding deeply how competition works, how improvement works, the cycle of learning. Like that's something that you clearly have. Maybe you don't have the APM of fan,
Right.
but there's a learning here that you have that's been over 20 years.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, I always think even the best tennis player in the world has a coach, right? So, like you got your pro HOTS players, they have a coach. And that coach, like you said, is not a better player per se, but they're the person that spends time thinking about the game instead of playing the game. And, and going over those videos and talking about placement, things like that, and time spent, XP lost, all that. Yeah. Okay. I see where you're getting at.
And that maybe that even gives you the angle to start to do the math. I don't know if you remember this. There used to be this series. I think it was Dignitas. Somebody on Dignitas or whatever would post this like math of the storm. Did you ever read that? Did you ever read that?
Maybe.
Oh my gosh.
Give me some more details.
It was this Reddit post, but it was also like hosted on Dignitas. Somebody in chat can, if they remember the details. It was basically like Tempo Storm. There we go. Thank you, Lupus. It would be these like all of these different things of like, oh, this is how the math of the patch or whatever has changed things.
Oh, right.
And there'd be like these spreadsheets that would like say like, okay, this is the health of this at these rates. And it would just be all these calculations. And maybe like Mainsky becomes the mathematician of the storm to bring this back. Because there's definitely like, I miss that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, totally. It is something that I'm interested in, and then again, it's that I like playing as well. Like how much time can I devote to the game if I'm playing and doing Math of the Storm and trying to, have a job and,
right.
maybe kiss a girl once in a while.
Well, let's get you on Patreon and we'll start to fund this like full-time Mainsky math content creation. It is as Goon calls it, the coach conundrum, and it's a rough one. It's definitely a rough one.
Yeah, on the topic of nuggets from chat, Goon actually mentioned earlier as far as the parallels between HOTS and Magic, counters. So, for example, like control decks versus aggro decks, or
Oh yeah,
as he put it, Unga Bunga comps versus like a CC macro comp.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is this a comp that's gonna win early, or is it stacking and wait until late? That makes sense. Good comparison, sir, or ma'am, or something in between.
Yeah, just the kind of idea that like identifying your win condition, right? It's something you got to do, and unlike in Magic, I guess you kind of can in Magic if you're doing a draft mode, but one of the skill sets is like seeing people building their deck, so to speak. You can kind of see like what win condition are they aiming for and what can I do to counter that.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you going to win this game? And then that could change depending on how things play out. Your original plan is like, all right, I was going to do this. Okay, that's changed. Now it's going to be this. Yeah, for sure.
Is that one of your strengths, being able to adapt to things like that on the fly?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I like to think that I'm a decision maker. Like I'll just, I try to evaluate things quickly and decide what has to be done. And but I don't know. In comparison to other HOTS players, I guess I couldn't say. Maybe my teammates could tell you.
Interesting. We'll wait for the jury to come in on that one. I don't know if I have other questions, Kren. Like Mainsky has been teaching a lot that my brain is like now thinking about. I got to get back. I played Magic. I had a blue deck back a long time ago. I didn't play enough, but now it's like I guess Magic. That's gone. I'm not gonna go find that deck. I want to play some Hearthstone now. Figure out my win conditions.
Spells with that blue deck.
Yeah.
Or maybe go ahead.
I was gonna say I played Black Red Vampires back when I was in high school.
Okay. Okay. That'll probably tell me how old you are if I can remember what's
The meta master. He
right.
knows it.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, I think that we've kind of run through all the questions that we had kind of planned out and some more from chat. We've been going for 80-ish minutes now.
Yeah. Impressive. I was there anybody who managed to wait through that whole interview? Congratulations, sir.
There's
I
quite a
think
few people
that's the
still in chat supporting you, Mainski. What have like we not covered? Like you've had this soapbox and you've taught us, you've taught people in chat. I need to go clip some of these moments to like send to people, send to some of these teams that I've coached. Um, what what else do you like? You've got the soapbox. Before we do any kind of shout outs and stuff, like what do you wish that everyone knew about you, about HOTS, about life?
Wow. What do I wish that everyone knew about life and HOTS? Man, this is big. I don't want to waste this opportunity.
This opportunity for all 26 viewers or however many people are in chat. I'm not even sure.
All right. Uh, I don't know. I mean, what I like to do in life, in my job, in my community, is kind of hope to be positive, and doesn't always work out that way. But I try to make people feel comfortable, try to be positive, try to be upbeat, and I think if you can manage that on whatever team you're playing on and whatever game you're playing, I think it'll be good for you. It'll be good for the people around you. Stay positive. I think that's what I like so much about this CCS community is just a lot of nice people being positive, having fun, helping out, helping each other.
And Mainsky, I can say firsthand that you definitely are one of those positive, nice, helping out people. Like it's been such a pleasure. Like because I think we both came to CCS that same free agent night. Like that was both of our inception. And definitely that whole time, you've always been somebody who's been like, "Oh, I want to play with Mainsky because he's fun, he's positive, I know he's gonna sweat, but he's also just like gonna keep it chill and have a good time."
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get sweaty.
So that's definitely like you definitely are somebody that so embodies like all the things you said about that you love about CCS are like you're part of creating that over the last year now, which is
Oh wow.
which is exciting and fun and crazy to think about.
Well, thank you. I totally appreciate that. I think what you and actually both of you guys are doing with these interviews and kind of giving people an idea of what some of the CCS players are thinking, I think it's super helpful. I love it. Inspiring is what it is. I'm not saying this interview is inspiring, but the other two, the other three,
You're aggressively humble, Mainsky, and I love it. And I appreciate that. But this has definitely inspired me. I can only speak for myself, but I know that I have been inspired.
well, thank you.
Well, Corinne, before we move to the outro, any last questions, thoughts, words for the Mainsky?
What did you play in Magic? Like what outside of draft modes, like what was your kind of favorite deck? If you had one.
Whatever was winning.
Good
Whatever,
answer.
I mean, I guess before the whole net deck situation, my thing was never deck creation. I was more of a drafter. So in that sense, I was creating the decks. But like I said, I had something in mind, what I wanted to do. And I had versions of that, right? So depending on what was coming to me, I had a lot of versions. But I remember making 2 decks in my life probably, and one of them was a deck that damaged myself and used a card called Bloodhound Gang that got tokens on it that got +1/+1 every damage you took, and that lasted till through your turn, even if it was on your opponent's turn. And so I just made a deck that damaged both of us, but then I got benefit out of it more. So that was kind of fun. And then I had another one that was all instants. It was a Browse Digger deck. So there was a card called Browse where you got to look at the top 4. It was an enchantment, so it stayed out. You got to look at the top 4 or 5 cards and pick one and remove the rest from the deck so you can get through your deck. And there was a card called Digger where you could dig your graveyard into the bottom of your deck. But if you didn't have a deck, you could just draw whatever card you wanted, essentially. That was kind of fun. But that used a lot of old cards that probably nobody even remembers these days.
Wow. Corinne, you're the Magic expert on the show, Corinne. Any other follow-ups?
I wouldn't really call myself a Magic expert. I played in high school, but yeah, no, this has been great. I never really made the connection between HOTS and Magic, and I guess just trading card games in general, because it would apply to like Yu-Gi-Oh and other things as well. Yeah, it's really cool to think about.
Well, the connections have abounded. The lessons have been learned. Mainsky, I want to thank you for coming out tonight and being on the show, sharing your wisdom across games with us all. And then again, another shout out for your positivity. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and play with you over the last year. This has been a great episode. We're excited for next week's episode, where we will have our very own Fujin Akari from CCS 7, Car Crash Sounds, a new member of the community. So we're kind of going from spectrum to spectrum here with the oldest to one of the newest. We're really excited to have her on the show. But Mainsky, before we let you go tonight, any shout outs that you want to give?
Yes, I have a few shout outs. First of all, to you two gentlemen who are doing a great job of getting the interviews out there, creating more community, so we can get to know all the other community members. I want to give a shout out to Josh, who's been helping us. He's been helping us for a while, but more in a more detailed way recently, and love getting his help. John Knight helped us not recently, but he helped us in the beginning and kind of in the middle, which was great. And of course, my teammates on CCS2. I love playing with you guys. Sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's easy, but it's always fun playing with you guys. So let's keep it up, dominate this season.
CCS2, the Band of Brothers. It's been amazing to have you on the show. Mainsky, the Offlane for Can't Connect Stuns. To all of you in chat who've been hanging out for the last little while, we appreciate you. We've had a great time. We hope to see you in next week's episode, which will be back on Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern. 8 days from today. Thanks for hanging out with us all. We will catch you all in the next time, and we'll see you in the Nexus. Bye.
Shout out to Valk's mom.
Oh my gosh, Valk's mom.